Namaskar. A very warm welcome to all the participants. I am Dr. PAVITRA BHARDWAJ. I teach at Jesus and Mary College, University of Delhi, New Delhi. Today I am here on the call of HRDC JNU, for which I am extremely grateful to them. This is an excellent opportunity to share my views on contemporary topics on internet-based research with you all. Today's topic is a very novel topic and a very practical topic which we require. The knowledge of this subject is required by all engaged in teaching, learning, research and sharing of content online. So I am sure you will not only find it interesting to listen and learn, but also very application oriented in approach. I hope you will be intrigued by this discussion and will be benefited in your online digital discourse. The basic goal of our cognitive lives is information seeking. This was stated by Goldman in his famous work Knowledge in a Social World. According to him, all human beings have an inherent tendency to seek useful knowledge through information gathering. Knowledge and information are used interchangeably, but we must understand that these two are interdependent, interconnected, but different ideas. From information, we gather or we gain knowledge. So, information has to be processed in order to gain useful knowledge, which will help us take decisions, which are then called informed decisions. Coming back to the subject of information. Now, of late, ARPANET was created by the Advanced Research Project Agency of the US military. And this technology has taken the world over in a way which is far from being, which is much higher than being spectacular. It has changed the way people do business, people lead their lives, they gain knowledge, they study and they communicate with each other. And even their discourse with the state, their interpersonal discourses, the various debates, etc. So, internet has evolved as the most powerful source of latest information for all. It has become the foundation for global communication and collaboration now. And this has led to the globalization of information. Now information is flowing freely without any barriers or boundaries or segments or walls. Information is the most freely flowing idea, or it is the most freely flowing entity in the recent age. And hence this age is known as the internet age, the information age. Internet, if you say, it is not just one technology, but we can rightly say that it is a suite of technologies, a suite of overlapping and interrelated technologies. It is an assembly of different technologies. And this is undergoing social diffusion and code-based modification at an enormous speed. We all know that the numbers of internet users are growing exponentially in all parts of the world. And since the modifications are happening, code-based modifications means that the change in the underlying architecture itself is happening. How we are moving from cables to optical fibers to satellite connections, how we are progressing. It is not like any other technology where, if we talk about the television of 1940 and the television of 1950, they were almost similar. But if I talk about the internet of 2010 and the internet of 2020, they are very different from each other. So this code modification which is happening is transforming the entire idea of internet at a very fast pace. So role of internet in education and research has also been widely accepted and it has been appreciated. So social science research can be augmented by the dynamic changing nature of the online research, of the online environment. So digital public platforms and digital public forums are being created. Dynamic spaces are being provided for exchange of ideas and dissemination of thoughts, which is making the world a global village, which is making the world closer, which is making the citizens come closer. And as the technology is diffusing, as the technology is becoming more and more deep rooted in the systems, it attracts adopters with different interests. So many of these adopters, many of these entities which are adopting the new technologies will come from existing institutions of authority. This is creating a process of political normalization. Normalization can be understood as how things are taken by people, how things are taken by societies as being normal, which is not considered something unusual. So now this transformation of technology, this transformation of internet and adoption of new technologies by the authorities, by the governments is also becoming very normal. And changes in technologies, like for example, we are talking about blogs. We had an idea called blogosphere, but now nobody is talking about that. Now we are talking about microblogging. We are talking about social networking. The idea of file sharing has changed. Content creation has evolved. And these are not only evolving, they are changing their form day in and day out. Technology obsolescence in IT is at the fastest rate as compared to any other technology. So internet innovations, because of all these factors, they are more precarious to study and imbibe than innovations in any other sector. So the availability of quality digital education materials to prepare learners for work and life is a key factor to ensure an inclusive and equitable global knowledge society. If we are aiming to provide a global knowledge society, if we are aiming to create a knowledge society, we need to have these three basic tenets of information. That is equity, access and affordability. If we are able to provide information to all same way and at a price which they can pay, only then the dream of becoming a knowledge society in the real sense will be possible. In this context, if we look at providing information, at providing digital resources in a manner which is accessible, equitable and affordable, a revolution took place which is known as the revolution of openness. What is open? Open means something for which you don't have to pay. So when we are talking about open access, we are talking about open license, we are talking about open resources, we are talking about resources or we are talking about materials or contents which are available to people without any cost. And because it is provided digitally, therefore the argument of access is also taken care of. And definitely the internet is a very democratic platform, it is a very equitable platform. So when we are talking about openness, I am going to discuss about open educational resources in this lecture. What is openness basically? Openness means two main things. First, free availability, and second, restriction free access. So we will talk, we can understand openness in terms of production, in terms of distribution and in terms of consumption. Openness can have different meanings. It can have a different meaning in social terms, it can have a different meaning in technical terms and a different meaning in economical terms or ethical terms. Like if you are talking about technological terms, open here would mean something which is open source, where the source is shared with you. You can change the basic plan or you can change the basic structure. Ethical means, open means that you have the right to use a resource which does not belong to you. And social means you are using the resources which were created by someone else in the community. So a higher level of openness is about the right and ability to modify, repackage and add value to the resource. However, most existing initiatives offer the most basic level of openness. Open here means without cost, but it does not mean without conditions. So when I am saying open educational resources, which are commonly known as OER, I am talking about the teaching, learning and research materials in any medium, digital or otherwise, that reside in the public domain or have been released under an open license that permits no cost access, use, adaptation and redistribution by others with no or limited restrictions. So open educational resources are available. Now generally these resources are digital resources, but that does not mean they can be in other forms also. So these resources can be curricula, can be text, can be images, audio, video, syllabus, e-content, anything, any resource which is available free of cost and without any restrictions on reuse or change are known as open educational resources. So basically these are digitized materials which are available freely and openly for educators, students and self-learners to use, reuse for teaching, learning and research. So the first time this open educational resources, the idea came up in 2000 by UNESCO. UNESCO is the agency which first discussed this idea of open educational resources. So, open educational resources, they will remove all social, economical, demographic, educational, geographical boundaries, because these are free, these are available online. Therefore, these can be accessed by anyone without, if you cannot afford higher education, this is the right solution for you. We know in our country there are so many students who have to leave, who have to drop out of higher education institutions because of the cost. But this is a solution which can bring down the cost. So, if we look at the open educational resources, there are 5 main attributes of open educational resources, which are generally called as the 5 R's. These are reuse, that is any resource which is an open educational resource can be reused by any other person. Revise, that is you can make any change to that resource. Retain, that is you can keep the resource with you even after the service or the product service conditions or the duration has expired. Redistribute, that is you can make copies of the resource and share it with others. And remix, that is you can combine this resource with any other resource and use it further. So, these are the 5 basic tenets which qualify, which have to be qualified by any resource to become an open educational resource. If we talk about the different models, what are the different models in which this open educational resources are being used? So, as in 2000, after UNESCO had introduced this concept of open educational resources or of open access, MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, was the first institution to adopt this in 2003, and they came up with their own model, which they have later implemented in the form of a platform. This is known as the MIT model. Now, the MIT model of open educational resources is a very centralized model. In this, the MIT uses its paid employees to create the content. All courses are available on this model, and they also have vendor support from Microsoft and from Sapient and others. The next model is the Utah State University model, which is commonly known as the Uso model, which is in between the centralized and the decentralized model, and this uses employees as well as volunteers to create the content, to create the open educational resources and to distribute them. And they are funded by the William and Flora Hewitt Foundation. So, they are supported financially by this foundation. And the next or the other model is the Rice model, the Rice University model, which is completely decentralized. It is volunteer based, and it has no restriction on the number of courses. Any person can contribute to their repository of open educational resources. So, this is absolutely decentralized. If we look at the question of funding, where is the money coming from? There are different models for funding of open educational resources. Like, first model is the endowment model, which was used in the Stanford philosophical philosophy encyclopedia, in which there is a seed money which is taken from some foundation, some donation, and by the interest of that the thing is running, the open educational resource concept is running. Then there can be a membership model where money is taken from the members of the platform. Then donations model is there, which is used by Wikipedia and Apache, in which donations are collected from the people or voluntary contributions can be taken from the community. Then conversion models are used by some European institutions, where freebies are given and later the people are asked to convert into members and pay some membership fee. Then there are contributor paying, where a contributor has to pay for initial uploading and management of the system. Once the content has been uploaded, then it becomes free. There can be funding from institutions like Massachusetts Institute, the MIT OpenCourseWare, which is completely funded by the institute itself, or there can be government funded, like in case of India or in case of UNO, where governments or larger institutions are going to fund this. So what is the purpose? I mean, why should one go for OER? Why should we use OER? Why should I, when I have created a resource or my institution has created a resource, why should I make it available to people without any charges or without any copyright? There are different reasons, there are different motives for this, for institutions as well as for individuals. First motive is altruistic motive. Altruistic motive means the feeling of sharing. The feel good factor which comes in when I share something that I own with others. If I am an individual, I would also like to be recognized, to have to have my publicity done. How will I do that? I can do that by putting my resources out in open, by putting my creations out in open. Then there is also a first mover advantage. If it is a business goal, if it is an idea and I am the first one to bring it out in the open, if I go by the commercial channels, it will take time, but if I am ready to open it for the public, I will have the first mover advantage. So sometimes for that also creators are ready to forego their rights and are making the creations available in the free domain. Barrier free learning. This allows for seamless flow of knowledge. If we talk about institutions, the institutions want a good PR. They want to attract students. So this is a way in which they can attract the students. Why should one reinvent the wheel? So why should one not build from something which has already been built? So that is another idea of reusing the content which has been created by others and allowing them to use the content which we have created. So this kind of a reason can be there. Then cost recovery is another reason. And of course, innovations can take place. Better flow of ideas can take place. Barrier free knowledge can take place. So therefore, many universities and many institutions across the world and many governments have gone out for this kind of a system. If we talk about Indian, like I just said, many countries of the world have this kind of open education resource initiatives, like there is Massachusetts Institute, there is China Educational, that is called the CORE, China Open Resources for Education. France has one, Japan has its own open education resource repositories. India also has its OER initiatives, like we all know NPTEL, National Program on Technology Enabled Learning, which is run by, which was initially started in 2000s by the IITs for disseminating educational resources in science and technology. But later this has moved on and now they are running multiple courses in management and other disciplines also, which are available. Then of course the India's bedrock, that is National Mission of Education through ICT, that has launched several schemes under its ambit which are providing multiple opportunities for learners to gain access through valuable resources free of cost. The SWAYAM platform on which this course is being hosted is also one of those. All these platforms are free. Only if you are wanting a certification, you have to pay some nominal fees. But if you only want to gain the knowledge, if you only want to access the resources, listen to the video lectures, that is all free of cost. India also has its national repository of open educational resources, which is called the NOER. All these repositories, all these sites, all these portals can provide greater resources at one's own, discretion. And of course, you are free from usage. In this connection, one very important topic or one very important idea is the idea of the Creative Commons. We all know that the copyright license allows an all rights reserved kind of policy where no one can use the materials which I have created without my permission and without agreeing to my conditions. But here we are talking about open licensing, which aims to run the copyright restriction around. So it is going to turn this restriction around, and instead of always having to ask the copyright holder for permission, an open license explicitly specifies under what circumstances and conditions the work can be used and reused. It encourages the sharing of resources. So this is called the Creative Commons license. It is available on their website. So this is the best and the widely used set of copyright licenses which are free for public use. So there are 6 categories of copyright licenses or the Creative Commons license, in which you can share the attribute which you have created, share the content or the article which you have created under the specific kind of permission set which you would like to give. For instance, if I have created something and I want to post it as a Creative Commons under the Creative Commons license, it is extremely simple. I just have to go to the Creative Commons license. I need to choose the type of license which I want, whether I want attribution or attribution and share alike, attribution with no derivatives, non-commercial, non-commercial share alike, and also of course there is a public derivative which is no rights at all rights have been waived off by the creator. So in this case, whichever license I want, I can click on a mouse click, I can take that. Along with that, the license deed is downloaded. So I need to copy those lines of code onto my website, and that item or that entity or that resource will come under Creative Commons license. And any person who wants to use this license can use it without any cost, only following the conditions which are specified. The Creative Commons have also come out with a learner's commons. This is a variation which they provide basically for teaching and learning resources. So this is also an important step which enables communities to overcome technical and cultural obstacles and identify what lessons have been learned. So if you want to look for any open educational resource, the best place to go is at the Creative Commons search engine. Otherwise, you can go to any mainstream search engine and just type the name of the item and you can type Creative Commons. So you will be able to download the item as it is. Now there are certain problems also which come, there are certain challenges also which come when we are talking about the the open educational resources, like there is sustainability issues, because you have to arrange for funding, you have to arrange for content creation and maintenance. Then there is always the intellectual property and copyright issues when free content is being generated. The issue of quality assurance is also important. How does one ascertain the quality of a resource which has been contributed to me by someone? There are different processes, there is peer review, there is institutional branding, or there is open review. So There can be multiple challenges, you know. There is always a competition for the scarce funds which are there. Then interoperability is another issue which is very commonly faced by open educational resources, because the resources which are created for one platform may not work as well for other platforms. Training and learning of use of these resources is another problem. If we are talking about open source softwares, so in that case also we need to train the people to use those alternatives instead of proprietary softwares. In spite of all these challenges, the open educational resources are the future of all academic work and all research activities which are going to take place. I hope you will use more and more of these resources in your discourse, in your learning, teaching, and you will share these resources. You will try to create, share and distribute more of open educational resources. Have a great journey. Thank you.